Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on which part of the country you're in today. We want to welcome you to the BAASS webinar series. Today's content is talking about the AutoSimply Manufacturing solution, as well as the AutoSimply Barcode solution for Sage 300. We're going to start with the manufacturing suite to give you an idea of how you can expand on the existing functionality within the inventory control module of Sage 300, specifically how we enhance the functionality of the bill of materials within inventory control to create more visibility into your manufacturing processes. We'll talk a little bit about how we can support production and purchase planning and shop floor control functionality. And then we'll take a look at some barcoding interfaces that allow you to provide remote access through a barcode interface into back office activities within Sage 300. So for those of you that are doing light manufacturing or maybe even more sophisticated manufacturing, you're probably familiar with the structures, the item codes, and the setup within inventory control. One of the things that many people try to do using inventory control is they want to have an assembly or a packaging process, and this is what we call creating master items within Sage 300. And when you create master items within Sage 300, you have the ability to create a bill of material where you can specify a list of components that make up a finished good item. But the issue with the bill of material and the assembly process within Sage 300 inventory control is that there's not much visibility into any type of routing within the manufacturing process. You don't have the ability to specify workstations or production areas. You don't have visibility into a wide variety of direct and indirect, variable and fixed costs. When you create the bill of material within inventory control, you can specify one fixed cost, one build quantity, one unit of measure, and one variable cost per build quantity. But what happens when you use the bill of material process to do an assembly within inventory control is that you press the button and voila, the components are assembled into a finished good item. Whereas when we move to AutoSimply Manufacturing, you get much more visibility into the production process by being able to specify a number of different specific components that make up the bill of material. You also have the ability to go 16 levels deep within the bill of material within AutoSimply. So let's look at a particular type of bill of material for a finished good product that we'll call FG003. So as you can see, we do support standard costs within the bill of material of AutoSimply Manufacturing, but we also have the ability to determine different types of BOMs. We have an assembled BOM, which is the default BOM, but we also have the ability to manage phantom BOMs. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the term, a phantom BOM essentially shows you all of the levels within a BOM as one flattened level. So you can see all of the components that make up the final finished good item. But in addition to that, we have the ability to create what we call operations. So operations are basically the type of work that you want to conduct as part of your manufacturing process. So in our example today, we're just simply looking at an assembly operation as well as a packing operation. And then within each operation, you assign a work center, which determines the area within your warehouse or manufacturing facility where this operation is being conducted. Notice as well that we also include the concepts for setup time, for run time, there's a cleanup time, and you have a wait time as well. So these are additional components that you can track as part of the production process within your organization. Notice as well that down below we have resources, and resources are things like your direct labor, your factory overhead, your setup labor, and these can all be established based on a specific quantity with a unit cost, and then based on the build, You can either have those vary with production as a variable cost, or they could simply be a fixed cost that's applied to the cost of the finished good item. We have another concept here called tools, and tools are something that you consume in the production process. So it could be something like a die or a mold that you use once as part of the finished good assembly or production process, and then it's something that's thrown away. So you fully cost the consumption of that tool during the production process. And then we have the ability to explode the bill of material, which will give you a breakdown of the assembly levels and sub-assemblies that are part of that specific finished good item. So I'm just showing you a simple tree structure here to give you an idea of the sub-assemblies that roll up to one level, and then another sub-assembly that roll up to the top level of the bill of material, and then final raw material and packaging components that complete the manufacturing process. But we also have something called a bill of manufacturing, and the bill of manufacturing will give you the ability to show the breakout of the bill of material based on your operations. So in this case, the sub-assemblies and the components are broken out by operation, and that's what we call a bill of manufacturing. So whether you're looking at it from an operational standpoint or simply the various levels, the sub-assemblies, you either can look at the bill of material through the traditional way or through a bill of manufacturing. Now, as you're creating this bill of material, you'll then specify all of the components that were part of that bill of material by operation, by cost type, whether it's variable or fixed, and the quantity that's required in order to produce the finished good item. So the other thing that we do is we have a scrap factor. So as you are developing your bill of material, you may recognize that there are parts of the production process that produce waste or scrap material. And so what you would typically do is, if you believe that there's about 10% scrap, then you would say there's a 10% scrap factor. And in the case where you need a quantity of 10 components, the system will automatically issue 10% more of that raw material to account for the fact that you're anticipating 10% scrap during the production process. So this will automatically account for the scrap or wastage that you might have during the production process. Now this leads us to another concept within the AutoSimply Manufacturing, and that is this concept of a co-product. A co-product is considered scrap as well, but rather than something that gets consumed and wasted, if you will, during the production process, this is an item that's left over after you've completed the production of your finished good item, and you want to be able to track that item back into inventory. It has no value because we fully cost all of the components into the finished good item, but it is something that you might want to track. And that's because it's something that could be resold or recycled. So there is some value to your organization. It's just that for inventory costing purposes, we fully cost the finished good item, but we allow you to track the scrap item, what we call a co-product, for further use, or maybe just selling off as bulk items that are left over. Now, we do support the optional fields within Sage 300, so if there's additional information that you want to track as part of the bill of material and the manufacturing process, you can do that. You also have the ability to add instructions, and we have the concept of engineering change orders built into the bill of material. So if you need to make a change to the bill of material, you can specify an engineering change order, specify the date, who that was authored and approved by, and if necessary, you can attach some documentation by storing a document in a network folder somewhere on your server or system. So this is how we build up the bill of material. And as I mentioned, we do use standard cost if you want to develop standard cost variables. But if not, then you would essentially use an average cost for your actual production process. But we do support all of the cost types within inventory control, because all of the costing still is maintained within the Sage 300 inventory control module. And as we start issuing materials to the floor, there will be a calculated amount for the actual cost to production, and then we'll start showing you the variances based on your actual experience during that production process. So that's how we develop the bill of material. Notice that we can also incorporate substitute items. So during the production process, if you find that you've run out of stock of a particular item, we do allow you to specify substitute items that can be used as part of the production process as well. And even though we might set some standards or predefined quantities to be issued as part of the production process, we would be able to allow you to modify that as you create your manufacturing work orders. Now, if you're using standard cost, you may know that inventory control also supports standard cost, but the standard cost is by location. And in a manufacturing environment, that doesn't make sense to have multiple standard costs. So if you do use standard cost within AutoSimply, then you would set up the standard cost through the item standard cost maintenance here within AutoSimply, and then push this standard cost information back into inventory control. So that would be one change of incorporating AutoSimply's manufacturing orders module. You would want to be able to specify your standard cost information in AutoSimply and push that back into Sage 300 inventory control. Now there's a quick upload for bill of materials, but we also have an import utility. There's a standard import template within the bill of material, but we have a more sophisticated bill of material import so that we can take your existing bills of material and populate them into the AutoSimply Manufacturing. And as you can see, it breaks out the operations, the components, the coproducts, the instructions, resources, tools, and we also support subcontract as a process within the production. So we've got multiple ways for you to populate the database within your AutoSimply Manufacturing for Sage 300. There's a number of different forms that we support that are all developed through the standard reporting engine of Crystal Reports. So whether it's issuances, returns, or scrap, all of those are different types of forms that can be created, including the manufacturing order itself. There are specific inquiries, the most important of which is a BOM or bill of material inquiry, but we have a where used inquiry and a costed BOM inquiry as well. And the BOM inquiry allows you to incorporate a planning aspect into the basic manufacturing orders module. So in this case, what we're trying to do is identify the components that make up the specific finished good item that we're looking at and be able to assess what's on hand based on what's required. So you have visibility into what's available in stock, what's already been allocated to other manufacturing orders, and therefore what's left over if I would decide I want to produce more of this finished good item. So this is a traditional make to stock environment that we're looking at now using the BOM inquiry, where I'm doing some planning for production based on what's on hand in terms of my raw materials. And off of this, I could specify that I wanted to create a certain number of finished good items. So let's say instead of just one, I wanted to create 100 items. I would refresh the information, and then it would take a look at the requirements and let me know if I need to purchase any additional items or how many I could actually produce. So from this screen, I can generate a manufacturing order based on what I see as available for materials and components. Or if I'm a little bit short, I can create a purchase requisition within the Sage 300 PO module. I could also export this and put it into a spreadsheet if I wanted to do some further analysis before I commit to making these finished goods items. Now, in addition to the ability to use the BOM inquiry, we have a complete production planning module. And this is your MRP scheduling as well as your purchase planning in one module. So in this case, we have the ability to create an item planning table for all of your finished goods for your MRP production scheduling, or for your raw materials for your purchase planning. So if we look at a raw material first, we can see that we defined a network code, and a network code is something that you define as a way of breaking down your planning process. So you could break it down by warehouse location, you could break it down by division or region. It's just some way for you to be a little bit more specific on your planning process. And because we're dealing with a raw material, this is a purchase order that we're trying to plan for, as opposed to a manufacturing order, which would be our finished good that we'll see in just a few minutes. Or it could be subcontract work that we're sending out to an affiliated agent that we work with. Now in this case, when we're dealing with a purchase order type, you can see that we can deal with maximum and minimum. We can have lead time, which would be a vendor purchase order lead time. We can specify order multiples, the buyer who's going to be conducting the purchase analysis, and then save this information to each of the raw materials that we wish to buy. Once we've done that, then we come in and we actually do a planning run. So the planning run allows us, based on what's already in stock, what's on a purchase order, what might be part of a kitted item in inventory control, what's already been asked for through a purchase request, what's been allocated to manufacturing on a manufacturing order, and even our existing actual demand based on sales orders and order entry, or I could include a sales forecast for forecasted demand. And then again, I would choose by network what I want to produce my, in this case, purchase plan for. I would do a net run to get up-to-date information based on what's on hand, what's on purchase order, what's on sales order, as well as what's committed to existing manufacturing orders. And then once I've run the plan, I have a summary and detail window that I can look at. And what this does, again by network code, will allow me to specify a list of my raw material items. So let's say RM001 to RM009. I could choose to do that by buyer if I wish, and it will give me a breakdown of these raw materials and show me what's in stock today, what's already on order based on existing purchase orders, what's allocated to production based on existing production schedules, and my projected net stock. And as you can see here, there's one item that's actually projected to go negative based on existing demand through manufacturing production. So if I were to look more closely at RM004, I can click on the item plan, and it will allow me to get more detail to understand what's happening with this raw material. So I can see that based on my stock on hand of 980 items, I have a minimum stock requirement of 500 units, which is, in other words, safety stock. And because this item is being used on a manufacturing order, in fact, 2 different manufacturing orders, I'm consuming a quantity of 80 and then a quantity of 1120. So if I add up, that's 1200 that I'm consuming. So as I start looking at that, it gives me the net quantity of 400, even though right now I've got actual of 900, because it's basing it on my minimum stock of 500. So as soon as I consume 1120, it knows that I'm going to go into a negative position. So the system is telling me that I need to plan a purchase order to get me back as close to the minimum stock as possible based on my order multiples of 25. So it's recommending a purchase of 725 items, which will get my actual quantity to 505, less my safety stock of 500 gives me a net quantity of 5. So in this case, it's a planned purchase order. So if I were to go ahead and do that activity based on the plan, I would come here to generate my purchase requests for my raw material items. And again, I would go to the network code. And if I look at my item numbers here, I'll use the same range of numbers, RM009. And location 1 is my warehouse locations within inventory control as of today's date. Then it tells me what I need to buy. So there's my 004 item, and I would just say yes and go ahead and post, and it will create the purchase request for me. So it generates request 11. So within PO, I now have a purchase request for RM004 on my requisition entry. And this then would be accumulated by vendor to generate my PO. So there's my requisition entry within the purchase orders module for raw material 004. So very integrated into the operations suite within Sage 300, whether we're looking at inventory items, creating purchase orders or purchase requests, or actual demand in sales order entry. So that's a little bit on the purchase planning side. Now quickly, if we go back and we look at a planning run for a finished good item, we've run a plan, but this time when we look at the items, we're going to look at finished goods items as opposed to raw materials. So when we look at finished goods 1 to 9, it'll tell us based on demand and what's available, I can identify the items that I need to start producing. So as you can see here, I've got very little stock on hand, just this one finished good item. So this may be a make to order environment as opposed to make to stock. And I've got some already on order, and these have been allocated to sales orders. And again, I have a projected net stock that goes negative. So if I look at the item plan for FG003, you can see why we're going negative, because we've got manufacturing orders on the floor, number 3 and number 6, where I'm producing 40 and 10 respectively. But because I've got a sales order within order entry that's creating a demand of 75, and I've got a minimum stock of 500 items again, the system's going to want to get me back as close to possible to that minimum safety stock as possible. So because I've got another sales order that's just come in, number 68 for 30, that adds to the demand for this item. So my planned order in this case is a manufacturing order, and it's suggesting that I need to produce 560 of these items to get me back to my safety stock and a net quantity of 5. So in this case, the information on the sales order gives me the customer information, and what it's doing is it's trying to resolve the shortage. So the pre-plan is to make sure that I produce enough to get back to my minimum safety stock. So again, if I were to look at the plan and generate an order, in this case, it would be a manufacturing order as opposed to a purchase requisition. And again, by network code, we look at our finished goods for that network. And this would be for production area PA. And here's my finished goods items. And there's the one we were looking at. So I could say yes and post, and it would generate the manufacturing order for that item. Or I could choose one of the other ones here. You can see there's quite a few that need to be created. But I can always come in here and say, you know what, I just want to create 50 of those today because that's all the materials that we have. And say yes and post, and it would go off and create the manufacturing order for me, MO8. So if we go to MO8 now within the manufacturing orders, we have manufacturing orders here. We can support 3 different types of manufacturing processes. We have the standard process where we create the MO, we issue, we return any excess stock, we complete the finished good production and receive it back into inventory, and then we close it out, which is essentially a 4 or 5 step process. We also have the ability to do back flushing. So instead of doing a standard issuance, receipt, return, we can back flush, which combines the issuance and receipt in one step. So you can be doing production throughout the day and then back flush the results to update your costs at day end. And the final option is what we call Kanban. Kanban is designed for people that have a just-in-time environment where items are coming into the warehouse or the production facility and as soon as possible being placed into production. And so you're trying to plan and manage your lead times for both production and purchasing so that items are coming in, being used, and then finished goods are being sent out based on actual orders. So there's the three different types of manufacturing processes that we support: a more standard 5 or 4-step process, back flushing, as well as the Kanban system. Now we also can create our manufacturing orders directly from sales orders in order entry if you are in a make-to-order environment. While AutoSimply Manufacturing has traditionally been ideal for discrete manufacturing, we do support processes either through batch MOs where you're producing multiple finished good products, or if it's a cutting or slicing type of process. So we have frozen food manufacturers, for instance, where they might take fish and then fillet them by cutting off the head and the tail and filleting the fish. So AutoSimply Manufacturing works perfectly fine in those types of environments. But coming back to the actual transactions, we generated an MO entry off of the MRP production plan. So in this case, what we want to see is what actually got produced. There's the MO8 that was produced off of the plan. And remember that I switched it to a 50 order. And so based on that order and the bill of material for that item, it already knows the components that need to be applied. It knows the quantity usage per item, whether there's any scrap, and the required quantity. We haven't issued any of that to the floor yet. And then it will also keep track of our work in progress as we start committing items to the floor. The operations have been defined, any subcontract that needs to be set up. If it was tied specifically to a sales order, or I was waiting on the items and I wanted to link the receipt of items on a certain purchase order, all of that information would be supplied as part of the manufacturing order that's created because it's based on the bill of material. And then any co-products and totals as we start issuing information out to the floor for the production of this item. So this is an internal. The status is new, so it has to be approved in some cases, and you can save that status. But we can't actually issue against this manufacturing order until it's been released. So you've got different status codes here for new, approved, and then released. You can also put manufacturing orders on hold, or you can close them out once you've completed production, or maybe the order was canceled and you don't need to produce a full allotment of items. But once this is released, we can save it, and then we can start issuing against MO8 to the production floor. And that's where we would start doing our issuances. And when we do an issuance, it will generate an IC shipment to move the items from raw materials to work in progress. Now again, AutoSimply Manufacturing is simply creating the bill of materials on top of what's already part of inventory control. So when we want to do an issuance against a specific manufacturing order, we're not moving inventory from inventory control to AutoSimply Manufacturing. We're simply giving it a different description, if you will. All of the costing remains within inventory control. We're not creating a separate work in progress or finished goods database. All of the costing and all of your raw materials, work in progress, and finished goods remain within Sage 300 inventory control. And then we can go ahead and add this with a description against that, and then we could specify the operation, that we want to perform on this particular MO. We'll do the dummy operation, and then we would be able to go ahead and issue these items to the floor. So it knows the sub-assemblies, it knows the packaging materials, and we can go ahead and add this as an issuance or go ahead and post. So if we go ahead and post, then it would generate a transaction to do the issuance. And we can issue all once we've selected the items. So if we go ahead and pull those items in, we have a required quantity, and then we choose to issue, and we can issue all the quantity. Or we could say, no, actually we think we're only going to need 40 of those items, and maybe 40 of these items, and maybe 40 of these items. And then at that point we would go ahead and post, and it creates an issuance transaction. So it's called issuance 3. So again, just highlighting the fact that we're fully integrated into the Sage 300 inventory control module. And then you'd be able to see these transactions as they're being created through the shipment entries within inventory control or through the statistics. So if we were to look at the shipment entry, we would see these transactions being created within inventory control based on the transactions. So there's the issuance that we just did today for those 3 components that are part of the manufacturing order. And you can see the detail, the comments, it's MO8. So completely integrated in terms of costing and inventory movement from manufacturing into inventory control. So this has been a fairly high-level overview of the AutoSimply Manufacturing Orders module. Notice that we do support lots and serial inventory as well, if that's required. And then, of course, we can incorporate production and purchase planning. And there's also the shop floor control module, which very briefly is just simply a way for you to track labor costs as shop entries on the floor. And you can either use AutoSimply Barcode to scan the in and out time of an operation at a workstation level. And this will keep track of 2 things primarily. It will show you the utilization of a particular workstation, how many hours within an 8-hour day, for example, that the machine or the workstation is being utilized. And it will also give you a measure of efficiency. So those are the 2 factors that we're trying to measure through shop floor control, is the utilization as well as the efficiency of the operations being conducted by operator within a work center and an actual workstation. And then if you're using shop floor control, this is how we capture our labor costs that get applied to the bill of material as part of a manufacturing order. So if you want additional information or you would like a specific one-on-one presentation for the AutoSimply Manufacturing modules, then just contact your local BAASS account manager and we'd be more than happy to do that for you. But given that we have to move along to the barcode solutions, I'm going to do that at this point so that we make sure we cover off the content for today's webinar. So to do that, I'm going to move out of this manufacturing company and over to another company for barcode interaction. And what you'll see is that with the barcode interface, we have the ability, let's see, no, let's pick a different company, sorry, let's do this one here. Now you're looking at the 2018 interface, so if this doesn't look familiar to you, it's based on the latest 2018 user interface in Sage 300. So the barcode within AutoSimply, it gives you the ability to support standard barcode font 39, 128, but it also has some more sophisticated barcode formats that you may be familiar with, for example, GS1, that incorporates not just item information, but also lot tracking and date information. If you're in the medical business, there's an HIBC format that's also supported. And you can see this based on some examples we've built into the application, because barcode technology doesn't have to be all that sophisticated. It's simply a different font, if you will. So if you've got a barcode font, you could install that as another font within Crystal and right away be printing off your own barcodes within Sage 300. So a standard barcode label might incorporate the item code with description and the barcode, and then a separate code with the lot or serial number that you wanted to track with that item. So in this case, you might have to scan it twice because they're one-dimensional barcodes. The GS1 format that I just referenced would incorporate a lot number as well as an item number on one barcode. So it makes the scanning just a little bit more efficient. But whether it's lot numbers, serial numbers, or just item numbers, they're all supported very easily within the AutoSimply barcode solution. The user master will identify for us all of the different types of transactions that we can support within the system, but notice that we have separate user IDs and passwords. So these barcode users are not using a Sage 300 LAN pack license. They're simply logging into the handheld scanner, or it could be a tablet, because we provide a separate user interface for the barcode. And what I'm referring to is I can run it from within Sage 300, but I can also set it up here as a separate icon on my Windows desktop. And it opens up and allows me to log into the barcode system across any of my Sage 300 companies. And then it presents a menu of options for me to access different transaction types within Sage 300. So I have a barcode for purchase orders that does PO receipts and PO returns. I have a barcode for order entry that does shipments and returns. I have an IC basic module that does IC transfer, internal usage, physical stock counts, and receipt transfers. And then I have an IC extended for IC receipts and shipments. And this assumes that you're not using PO for receipts and OE for shipments. It also incorporates assembly and disassembly and manufacturer's items. It does support the manufacturing processes that we just talked about as part of AutoSimply Manufacturing, whether it's the backflush or the Kanban manufacturing process, or the more traditional 4 or 5-step process where you do separate issuances, receipts, and returns. The shop floor control module is also supported, so we can be tracking cleanup time, runtime, downtime, any rework or stoppage time. And then there's a separate list of inquiries for tracking bin numbers within inventory control if you're using the ORCID bin tracking to specify bins within a location. And then standard lot serial inquiries, manufacturing order inquiries, or different stock, pending shipment, pending receipt, or item inquiries. So as you can see, there's quite a broad list of applications that are supported within the AutoSimply barcode. And under user security, you can define rights to what kind of transactions you want people accessing within the barcode system. So you just turn on or turn off the types of entries that you want people accessing through the barcode system. And then to configure it, it's actually a web service. So you would need a Wi-Fi connection from the handheld scanners to the Sage 300 server. And I'm running locally, but you would have to enter your IP address of your SQL database server and your Sage 300 server, and then be able to log into SQL as a database and then log into Sage 300. So I mentioned that the barcode users themselves do not consume a Sage 300 LAN pack, but the barcode system itself does actually consume one LAN pack. So we would request that you set up a dedicated Sage 300 LAN pack license in order to do that. So we not only list all of the features that are included with the barcode module and what's required, but we have a diagram that shows you the configuration for the different scenarios, whether you're working with one warehouse or whether you've got remote warehouses that need to be synced. So as I mentioned, we need one LAN pack to link the web service for the barcode users into Sage 300. And that's how we log the barcode information from the scanners or a Windows tablet or a notebook computer into Sage 300, because it's a real-time connection that we're making. And in this case, it might just be a Wi-Fi connection, but if it's a remote connection, then you might want a VPN connection using a router-to-router, point-to-point communication. So we have different types of scenarios that we can support depending on what your particular organization requirement is. But coming back quickly to this breakdown, these are all the different modules that we have within the AutoSimply barcode. And you can see if I want to use the barcode for inventory control, then I would require, of course, the inventory control module within Sage 300. So every barcode module will require the corresponding Sage 300 module in the back office, so that as we connect and conduct activities on the barcode system, we'll be able to update the associated module within Sage 300. So having said that, let's go ahead and do something like a PO receipt. And what you'll see is that when I look at the standard activity within the back office, essentially what we're doing is we're providing remote access through a barcode interface into Sage 300 without people having to log in to Sage 300. So in some ways, you could think of the barcode system as remote access through a simplified interface. But what I want to do is I want to highlight for you the fact that it is real time and that we're going to create an actual purchase receipt. So to do that, let's create a new PO first, and let's choose a vendor. Let's say vendor 1400, and we'll choose some items. So let's choose this item here, and let's say we're going to purchase it for location 1, and we want to have an order quantity of 25. And we will go ahead and post that as a transaction. And it will create for us a PO number, PO40. Now, we're also integrated in with the ORCID bin tracking, so I'm going to show you very quickly that as part of the bin setup, what I'm going to do is I'm creating a bin within a location. So if you want, it's not necessary, but you can track items within a bin, within a location, and AutoSimply barcoding will support that. So when I do a receipt of an item, it will not only generate the PO receipt, but it will also do a put away into the bin within inventory control. And as we talked about, we do support lot and serial. So if the items are serialized, then we will store the serial numbers for the item quantities within the bin, within that location, or in this case, a lot number for those items within the bin, within the location. So this gives you the ability to quarantine items, to stage items for picking, to track more specifically the exact location of these items within your warehouse. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'll just highlight the fact that this is the item we're purchasing. So you can see there's a current stocking quantity of 650 within the bin and 1,202 in total within inventory control. And the difference there could be that some of the items are in a bin and some of them are not binned, or it could be that the other items are part of a separate bin. So we'll go ahead and we'll generate a purchase order receipt against this PO. So again, it was PO 40 with a quantity of 25 for item A11030. And just to show you that we're not doing any smoke and mirrors, I'm going to highlight for you what the last receipt number was within PO. And then, of course, we will generate the next available receipt number. So I'm going to go to the last receipt number, and that's 100. Okay, so if I use the finder, that's the last number, receipt 100. So now let's go ahead to the barcode interface and do that PO receipt. So again, I'm just running this on a notebook because it's a separate interface. This could be a tablet or it could be a handheld device. I can receive without a PO as well, or I can do multiple PO receipts. I'm just going to do a single one, And then I might know the PO number that I could scan in, or AutoSimply has built in a nice search feature. There's PO 40. So I can call up the PO and it knows the items that were part of that. And now let's just put in a quick reference here that this is a test for webinar purposes. And then I would click on the detail screen and it will tell me the item that I should be receiving against that PO and the PO quantity. So it is item A1103, and that's the item we're going to receive. And so it then tells me this is what I'm expecting to see. It's going into location 1. Now you notice this yellow box here, it's got an E in it, and that E means enter. So it's allowing me to go in and enter the quantity that I want to receive. Now I could also go to scan mode, and this is a configuration option within the barcode system. I could scan the quantity rather than enter the quantity. And some organizations force people to use a barcode to scan the quantity. Now I also could change the location because I have access into the IC locations. So even though the original purchase was set up for location 1, I could change that on the floor if I needed to. I'm going to go ahead and receive a quantity of 25. And because we're integrated with bin tracking, you see the bin item information pop up as well. So I might scan the bin that I want to put this item into and then tell it that I am going to put away 25. And so it knows that's the bin and that's the put away quantity, and I want to add that as an entry. Now I can review these entries to determine, is this the correct information that I want to commit to and post into Sage 300? Because remember, this is a real-time interface. So when I post this from the barcode system, it's going to set up the information within Sage 300. So by hitting the post button, it says, would I like to create my PO receipt? Well, because I'm also integrated with bin transfers or bin tracking, it will create a bin transfer document as well. So by saying yes, we process the entry and a receipt number will be generated. Receipt 101 and bin transfer 36 has been created. So now if I go into the back office of Sage 300 and I open up that receipt entry screen again, my last receipt number should be 101 for that desk lamp, quantity of 25 that was received. Okay? So that's how quickly, and there's the comment that I added in the reference field, test for webinar purposes. That updates against PO 40 for receipt 101. So that was my PO receipt being captured off of the handheld system into purchase orders. And then because we were integrated with bin tracking, there was a bin transfer document created for a put away of 25 items. So if I go to my last bin transfer document, there it is. Bin transfer 36, receipt 101, a put away for this item of 25 into this bin. And then of course I could come in and modify this if I needed to within the bin transfer module. Or I could just say this is complete. It's been created against receipt 101. I can save it and I'm good to go. Okay. So there's the integration that AutoSimply Barcoding has with Sage 300, not just for purchase orders on receipts, but also into bin tracking if you need more advanced functionality within your warehouse. Now we also have other options here as part of the barcode system. We could be doing IC stock counts, for example. And we can choose the location that we want to generate those stock counts for. And as we generate a physical inventory worksheet within inventory control, we can start to count items within the system. And as I do a count quantity, let's say it's 308, you see that the original counted quantity was 303, and now I'm counting a quantity of 308. And I have the ability to review that if I need to. And then I can go ahead and post and it'll say, do you want to post the stock count? Yes. And it'll say, would you like to override the previous counted quantity? So I can either add this quantity, because I might have multiple people counting in different parts of the warehouse, and I want all of them to add their quantities up together, or I can simply override and say, this is the one total quantity for that item. So we post that item, quantity counted for that item. And then within inventory control, if I look at my physical inventory and I want to check my inventory worksheets or my physical inventory quantities, those items for location 1 will start to get updated based on the quantity counted on the physical inventory worksheets. So as we're doing those counts, we'll post them through and update our inventory worksheets automatically. So we can either print them off or do inquiries, as you know. And if we're integrated in with bins, then we can do bin counts at a bin level and update the information for each of these items. So that's another aspect of AutoSimply barcoding. It gives you visibility into Sage 300, allows you to capture information without physically being logged into Sage 300. So that's just a brief overview of the PO receipt, the IC stock count. Of course, we could do OE shipments as well, but in the remaining few minutes that we have, I wanted to take you over to the inquiries and show you some of these. So let's say we have pending shipments that we want to review. We can look at this as of today, over the next 3 days, by location, and it might identify for us anything that's coming up. And we could search by customer number as well and see if there's anything coming in and what's pending for specific orders for specific customers. And it would give us a visibility into that. And go in and check the detail. So I have an idea of what needs to be shipped. Nothing's been picked yet, so that's my outstanding shipment quantity for that particular order. And I could review it and update the information from there if I need to. So that's pending shipments. You can do simple stock inquiries by item number and do searches, say what items am I most interested in, and just get a sense of what's on hand, what's on order, what's already allocated, and specify, for things that are unallocated, what's the breakdown of those orders within sales orders. Or look at stock, what's on order. Okay, so here's my POs. So somebody in the warehouse gets a view from their handheld or a notebook or a Windows tablet to be able to see the kind of information about inventory items that normally would be reserved to somebody in the back office, but now you can actually get visibility from the handheld unit. So that's a stock inquiry. You've also, if you're running manufacturing, you could inquire on manufacturing that's being pushed out to the floor. You could go into bin inquiry, lot serial, pending receipts. All of this information is visible through the scanning or handheld devices. So again, if it's just an item inquiry and you just want to get some additional details about the item, you can see this kind of information visible through the handheld as well. Okay, so that is a high-level overview of both the AutoSimply Manufacturing as well as the AutoSimply barcoding. I will just mention one other thing very quickly before we open up the floor to any questions that there might be out there, and that is, in addition to the standard barcode interface that AutoSimply has created, they've also created a derivative application called Sales Anywhere. And what Sales Anywhere is the ability to use a handheld scanner to record sales into accounts receivable or order entry but also do document inquiries. So for example, if you wanted to do an OE sales order, you can generate a transaction by picking up an item within inventory control with a unit of measure, with a quantity, and you can go ahead and you could either use sort of a dummy customer that might be something that you're just doing cash transactions for and taking payment at the point of sale. Or you could use a real customer that's part of the accounts receivable database and generate a sales transaction against that customer if you want to do that. And then based on picking up that customer, you then have the ability to start making sales to that customer. So you choose the item, you choose the quantity. Let's say he's going to buy 10 of these items from location 1, and you can see it gives you an extended total. And you can go ahead and post this as an entry, and it will generate an order within order entry. Okay? And then you can also take payments, you can print off a receipt, and you can also verify existing information about that customer. Now, if we can do the same thing through AR, or let's stay here in OE just for a second. You can do document inquiries by order number or by customer number again. So if we choose the customer number and do a search, it'll verify all the orders for that specific customer, and you'll be able to call up any of those orders within the system. Oops, sorry. And so we call up that order. I think I was just too quick on the draw there. There's the order, and it shows us the items for that particular order. And if you want to take payment now, we would say, okay, well, what is the amount? Is it going to be a standard payment, or are we taking credit card? Is there a check receipt number? So we can generate these payment transactions and print off a receipt right off the handheld if you've got a Bluetooth printer or something like that. So whether it's OE or whether it's AR, the sales anywhere is the ability for you to start tracking sales transactions remotely, whether it's at a trade show or on some vehicles that are doing pickup and delivery. So I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to show you that the barcode interface that's integrated into Sage 300 has also morphed into a sort of a mobile sales solution as well, because it's something that's supported as a separate user interface on handheld devices, not just scanning devices, but also tablets as well. So let's check and see if there's any questions that have been sent in. Oh, all right. So it looks like we have no questions. So that then brings us to the end of our presentation today. We want to thank you very much for your time and attention. As I mentioned, if you do have any additional questions, please contact your local BAASS account manager, and they can provide pricing information, detailed product information, and as necessary, schedule a one-on-one presentation to talk specifically about your requirements for manufacturing or barcode solutions. Thanks very much for attending. Have a great day.